Hey guys, Tario here, back again. I was finally able to get my hands on 3 copies of the Ice Barrier deck. So in this video, I'm going to go over one of them, just so we can kind of get a feel for the deck. Like, I'm going to read the effects, and I'm going to go over each of the cards, so maybe you can kind of learn more about Ice Barriers and the structure deck that was released not too long ago. So first up, we got Revealer of the Ice Barrier, right? Nice looking card. It is a level 4 spellcaster water monster with 1700 attack and 1000 defense. And its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot tribute summon. You can only use each of the following effects of Revealer of the Ice Barrier once per turn. You can discard one card, special summon one Ice Barrier tuner from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. If you would discard or send a card from your hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect, you can banish the card from your graveyard instead of one of those cards. So, with the first effect, your opponent cannot tribute summon. Not a lot of people really tribute summon nowadays. A lot of people can't either normal summon a level 4 or lower monster like this one, or special summon. It's really one of those two. I haven't really seen any tribute summons, like, in the past few years. For the second effect, you can discard one card, special summon one Ice Barrier tuner from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except the water monsters. That one is useful. That one, you can get cards out, along with this second effect, if you would discard or send a card from your hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect, you can banish this card from the graveyard instead of one of those cards. And it says you can only use each effect, not one of them. So, if you already have one in the graveyard and you have this on the field, you can remove the one in the graveyard from play to special summon a Ice Barrier tuner monster from your deck. So you can easily just go into a synchro monster with this card, and whichever one you go into with basically no cost, almost. Next up, we got Speaker for the Ice Barriers. It is a level 4 water spellcaster monster with 1000 attack and 1800 defense. Its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, defense position monsters your opponent controls cannot change their battle positions. Okay. You can only use each of the following effects of Speaker for the Ice Barriers once per turn. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. So if we have this Revealer, we can special summon this, and with Revealer's effect, we can have a tuner and 2 level 4 monsters, so we can go into a higher level synchro from there right away. Then, its other effect, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Ice Barrier token, Aqua, Water, level 1, attack 0, defense 0. So, depending on what you do, if this card is in the graveyard, you can get a level 1. If it's in your hand, you can special summon it. So next up, we got Zuijin, the Zuijin of the Ice Barrier. Kind of reminds me of like Zuijin, Kazijin, you know. A level 2 warrior effect monster, that's water, 500 attack, 300 defense. Its effect reads, you contribute this card, special summon one level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster from your hand. If this card is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can target one level 3 or higher water monster you control, reduce its level by exactly 2. And if you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Okay. You can only use each effect of Zuijin of the Ice Barrier once per turn. Okay. General Wayne of the Ice Barrier. A level 5 warrior effect monster, that's water, with 2100 attack and 400 defense. Its effect reads, spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are banished instead. You can only use each of the following effects of General Wayne of the Ice Barrier once per turn. If your opponent controls a monster and you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Ice Barrier spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Okay. Then Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier, one of the tuners that you can get from the card we were talking about earlier. Level 1 Sea Serpent Tuner effect monster, that's water. Its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent controls lose 500 tech and defense. That's okay. That's okay. It's kind of one of those things where if you have it, you can maybe get over one of your opponent's monsters. During your main phase, you can send one level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster's until the end of this turn. That, I think, is a little better. Because since this is a tuner, you can send any monster in which level you need, and then synchro summon immediately. You can only use this effect of Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier once per turn, which is fine. Since I would think if you're using this card, you're gonna be link summoning or synchro summoning, right away. Then we got Blizzard, Defender of the Ice Barrier. Level 1, Water, Aqua effect monster with 300 attack and 500 defense. This card's effect reads, if this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the graveyard, draw one card. It's okay. It's one of those things where you can just place it in defense, then draw a card. That's really about it. I don't think it's the best Ice Barrier card whatsoever, but at the very least, it allows you to draw a card when it's destroyed, That's really about it. Then next up, we got Cryomancer of Ice Barrier. Level 2, Water Aqua Tuner effect monster with 1300 attack and 0 defense. And its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, level 4 or higher monsters cannot declare an attack. Next up, Prior of the Ice Barrier. Level 2 Water Aqua effect monster with 1000 attack and 400 defense. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot special summon any level 5 or higher monsters the turn you summon this way. Okay, you're level... Okay. You can tribute this card, then target one Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard, except Prior of the Ice Barrier. Special summon that target. Next up is Defender of the Ice Barrier. A level 3 Water Aqua Tuner effect monster with 200 attack and 1600 defense. And its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot declare an attack if their attack is greater than or equal to this card's defense. Next up, we have Warlock of the Ice Barrier, a level 3 Water Spellcaster effect monster with 400 attack and 1000 defense. And its effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, both players must set spell cards before activating them and cannot activate them until their next turn. Next up, Spellbreaker of the Ice Barrier, a level 4 Water Spellcaster effect monster with 1200 attack and 2000 defense. And the effect reads, once per turn, you can send one Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard. Neither player can activate spell cards until the end of your next turn, while this monster is face up on the field. Next up, Strategist of the Ice Barrier, a level 4 Water Spellcaster effect monster with 1600 attack and 1600 defense. And its effect reads, once per turn, you can send one Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard, draw one card. Next up is Dance Princess of the Ice Barrier, a level 4 Water Spellcaster effect monster with 1700 attack and 900 defense. Its effect reads, once per turn, if you control another Ice Barrier monster, you can reveal any number of Ice Barrier monsters in your hand, then target an equal number of set spells and traps your opponent controls, return those targets to the hand. Okay. So, at the cost of revealing your own Ice Barrier monsters in your hand, you can send set spells and traps your opponent controls back to their hand. So, this is kind of like a double-edged sword to me. While you're While if you're going second, you can always send them back to the hand, which is nice, which is really nice. But you're also revealing part of your hand. You're letting them know, like, some of the cards that you have. You know, which, like I said, it's just like a double-edged sword. Like when there are cards like Twin Twisters, Cosmic Cyclone, even MST, Mystical Space Typhoon, where you can always just get rid of cards and send them to the graveyard or banish them depending on the card. This one just seems unnecessary to me. Next up, we got Daisojou of the Ice Barrier. A level 6 water spellcaster effect monster with 1600 attack and 2200 defense. Its effect reads, if this card is normal or flip summoned, change it to defense position. Ice Barrier monsters you control cannot be destroyed by spell or trap effect. Next up, General Raiho of the Ice Barrier. A level 6 water warrior effect monster with 2100 attack and 2300 defense. Its effect reads, when your opponent's monster effect is activated on the field resolves, they must discard one card or the effect is negated. Their choice. Next up is Medium of the Ice Barrier. A level 7 spellcaster effect monster with 2200 attack and 1600 defense. If your opponent controls 4 or more cards than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. Your opponent can only activate one spell or trap card each turn. But next up, General Gantala of the Ice Barrier. And I gotta say, I really like a lot of these like higher leveled Ice Barrier monsters. This one is level 7, Water Warrior Effect Monster with 2700 attack and 2000 defense. Once per turn, during your end phase, you can target one Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard except this one and special summon it. General Grunard of the Ice Barrier. A level 8 Water Warrior Effect Monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense. Its effect reads, during your main phase, you can normal summon one Ice Barrier monster in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Next up, Genex Controller. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I was a little surprised that they put it in. Because there's no Genex monster in the extra deck, which makes me kind of think that they were initially planning on putting one there like Undine. You know? Or is that this one? That's this one. Like the whichever one is the water Genex Synchro monster. Because you need this guy in order to synchro summon any Genex monster, really. Like, this guy is a level 3 dark machine tuner normal monster. You know? Which I think it would be cool if they added the water one. I think that would have been really cool and like a really nice addition. Because I'm sure a lot of people, like especially if they started recently or came back somewhat recently in the past like 2 or 3 years, they're not going to have any Gen X monsters really. Unless they get it from these structure decks or like some like overpacks if they want to go back. But it would have been cool. Next up, like I was saying, Gen X Undine. This one is a level 3 water aqua effect monster with 1200 attack and 600 defense. Its effect reads, when this card is normal summoned, you can send one water monster from your deck to the graveyard, add one Gen X controller from your deck to your hand. It's Aqua Spirit. Aqua Monster, level 4. Really from this point on, I'm gonna kind of cool it on that part and just read the effects. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing one water monster from your graveyard. Once per turn, during your opponent's standby phase, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, change that target's battle position, and if you do, it cannot change its battle position for the rest of this turn. Okay, we got Dupe Frog and Ronin Toden. By the way, check out my bro Ronin Toden's Twitch and YouTube channel. I will link them into the description down below, so make sure you check them out. This card's name becomes Des Frog while on the field. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for attack except this one. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one frog monster from your deck to the graveyard. From the deck or graveyard to your hand except Dupe Frog. So, with these two, I would have thought that they put like Totally Awesome in. That would have been really cool to see Totally Awesome in, especially since it was somewhat recently just put back to 3, I think. By the way, Onin Tonin cannot be used as synchro material. This card's name becomes Death Frog while on the field. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 frog monster from the graveyard to summon this card. But like with these two, they're both level 2. It would have been amazing to see Totally Awesome and some more of the frog package in there, just to get a little bit outside of the normal like combos you would see in like a structure deck. That would have been cool, but I can talk about that later. Okay, Fishboard Launcher. Another tuner monster. Cannot be used as synchro material except for the synchro summon of a water synchro monster. If you have a monster in your graveyard other than Fishboard Launcher, send all of them, and all of them are water. You can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Fishboard Launcher once per turn. Then we got Mullen Glacier, the Elemental Lord. Cannot be a normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand by having exactly 5 water monsters in your graveyard. If this card is special summoned, discard 2 random cards from your opponent's hand, or their entire hand if less than 2. You can only use the effect of Mullen Glacier once per turn. If this face-up card leaves the field, skip the battle phase of your next turn. Okay. Like, it's just another, like, high-level, like, water monster. That's really it. Then we got Silent Angler. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but cannot special summon from the hand for the rest of the turn. I don't see people like adding this card unless they're just using it as their last special summon from the hand. Then we got Winds Over the Ice Barrier. I really like this artwork. Like a lot of the new ones and like the Ice Barrier cards, I think they have some really cool artwork. Like, this isn't the best view or the lighting, but it's great artwork. So it's a normal spell card, and it reads, tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters. Special summon from the deck that many level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your Ice Barrier monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. Then next up, we got Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, continuous spell card that reads, when this card is activated, you can target 1 level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard, special summon it. While you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. You can only activate 1 Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier per turn. Okay. Next up, we got Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier. Reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names from your hand, then target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy that target. And if you do, special summon 1 Ice Barrier monster from your hand. Not bad. And I like how the 3 of the big guys are on here, too. But, like, I've said this a few times, with how many monsters can't be destroyed or targeted by card effects, this one doesn't seem all that powerful to me. Like, it's nice. It's for sure nice. But just kind of lackluster with how many cards can't be destroyed by card effects or targeted. Next up, we got Medallion of the Ice Barrier. Add 1 Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. Like, that goes without saying. That's really nice. Any Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. Any. Next up, we got Mirror of the Ice Barrier. Like, I like how this looks. Like, with the 3 Trishula heads on it, like, it looks awesome to me. This one is a quick play. During this turn, each time a card or cards is banished from your hand, field, or graveyard by your opponent's activated monster effect, apply the following effects based on where the card was banished from. From the hand, banish up to 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Field, banish up to 2 cards your opponent controls. Graveyard, just banish 2 cards from the graveyard. Okay, up to 2 cards. Next up, we got Salvage. Normal spell, target 2 water monsters with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Add those to your hand. It's a way to kind of recycle, you know. Then we got Surface. Target 1 level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua type monster in your graveyard. Special summon it in defense. So, and that's a normal. Both of those were normal. So, just kind of a way for you to get a lower level monster on the field if you want to like synchro summon or link. So I just realized that the video I took, like the 40-minute long video, cut off when I was reading Where Art Thou. So I'm gonna read the effect real quick. If you control a level 1 monster, add 1 level 1 monster from your deck to your hand. During the end phase of this turn, take 2000 damage if you did not normal summon the added monster or a card with the same name after activating this card. Okay, onto the traps. Appointer of the Red Lotus. Pay 2,000 life points and reveal your entire hand. Look at your opponent's hand, then banish 1 card from their hand until your opponent's next end phase. Then we got Fiendish Train. Continuous. Activate this card by targeting 1 effect monster on the field. Negate the effects of that face-up monster while it is on the field. Also, it cannot attack. When it is destroyed, this card is destroyed. Okay. Simple. Then we got eyesbond. Continuous trap card. If a non-water monster is normal and special summoned while you control a water monster, change that summoned monster to defense position. Not face down defense position, just defense position. Then the next one, Mind Drain. Okay, continuous trap card. Activate this card by paying 1,000 life points. Neither player can activate the effects of monsters in the hand. Okay. Like, honestly, this one's interesting to me because neither player can activate hand traps. You know, no Nibiru, no Ash Blossom, no Ghost Ogre. It just completely shuts down hand traps. Now, it shuts down other effects as well from the hand, but I think it's interesting that they added a card like this that just completely shuts down hand traps. And they would have to use a card like Heavy Storm Duster in order to get rid of it. Normal trap card here. Target up to 2 spell or traps on the field. Destroy them. You cannot conduct your battle phase a turn. You activate this card. So this card, it's okay. Like it's a spell and trap removal. So it's spell and trap removal. Then we got Crackdown. Continuous trap. Activate by targeting 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of that monster. While you control that monster, it cannot attack or activate effects. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. So this one I think is kind of cool, especially for like a synchro type deck. You can activate this, take control of one of your opponent's monsters, and just go off in it. Like synchro summon or link or exceed or do whatever you want to do. You know? Then the last trap card, Terror of Trishula. This one, kind of interesting. Normal trap card. Oh, look at that artwork though. Ooh. Apply these effects in sequence depending on the number of Ice Barrier synchro monsters you control with different names. 1 or more, banish 1 card your opponent controls. 2 or more, banish 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. 3 or more, banish 1 random card from your opponent's hand. When your opponent activates a card effect that targets an Ice Barrier synchro monster you control, you can banish this card from your graveyard and negate that effect. You can only use each effect of Terror of Trishula once per turn. Then the big boss, Trishula 0 Dragon of the Ice Barrier. A level 11 Dragon Synchro effect monster with 2,700 attack and 2,000 defense. It requires 1 tuner plus 2 or more non-tuner monsters. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. If this synchro summon card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard, its attack becomes 3,300. Then have the attack of any face-up monster your opponent currently controls also negate their effects. You can only use this effect of this card once per turn. That is insane. Once it's synchro summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. And if this card is destroyed in any way, really, by your opponent's card, you can bring out a Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, from your extra deck, graveyard, and have its attack become 3,300. Then have your opponent's, all of your opponent's monsters attack and negate their effects. That is insane. That is absolutely monstrous. You know? Speaking of Trishula, I'm going to have that one be the next monster, since we were just talking about it, you know? This one is a level 9 Dragon Synchro effect monster. It's limited. You can only have one, like in the extra deck. It requires a 1 tuner plus 2 or more non-tuner monsters. Its effect reads, when this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card, each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. The card in the hand is chosen at random. Like, similar effect, except it's 1 in the hand, 1 in the graveyard, 1 on the field. Like, and if you bring it out with Sub-Zero here, like, you're not gonna get that effect, but you're gonna be, like, unstoppable, like, with those two. Next up, we got Duloran, Tiger, King of the Ice Barrier. Level 6 Beast Synchro Effect Monster. 1 tuner plus 1 non-tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner water monsters. You can target any number of other face-up cards you control. Return those targets to the hand, and if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each card returned to the hand by this effect until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect once per turn. So basically, yeah, I kind of like that. It just adds a bit of power for each card you choose to return back. So, like, if you return 2, it brings this card up to 3,000, so which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. Just a monster with a bit of power. Then, one of my favorite cards, like in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! One of my favorites, Warlock, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Level 6 Sea Serpent Synchro Monster. 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. You can discard any number of cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls. Return those targets to the hand. You can only use this effect of this card once per turn. I really like this card. Not for the effect, but just it's one of the first synchro monsters I ever had, you know? It just has a lot of nostalgia for the water deck I had growing up in high school. This was one of the prime cards in that deck, along with, like, Wind Up Zenmeister. Like, I love this card. Then, the last card. Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. A level 7 Dragon Synchro Monster. Requires 1 tuner, plus 1 or more non-tuner water monsters. Once per turn, you can discard up to 2 cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls, destroy them. Okay. So, thoughts on the deck? I don't think it's the strongest deck. I don't think it's the strongest structure deck we've had, especially with ones like the Shadal deck, the Rocket deck, and the Salmon Great deck that we've had all before. Like, those 3 are, like, amazing structure decks compared to this one. But I think for a lot of nostalgic players who maybe started in the 5Ds area like me, they might like it. I'm going to have to continue this later. So, real quick, I had to stop earlier because my phone that I'm recording with was dying. It was at like 5%, strong 5, and I needed to let it charge for a bit. So, I'm back like 20 minutes later. It's charged more. I just wanted to give a few quick thoughts on the structure deck. Freezing Chains, this is the one that I opened for the deck that you saw, like the 40-minute video on that's going on now. It's a long ass video. but it has a lot of good information, I think. Two things that I think would make it a lot better and a lot more desirable for people to buy is, well, mostly one thing is to add Totally Awesome. Like with Ronin Tonin and Dupe Frog in here, I think that would have been a great addition to the deck. Just a great addition. Like, I know this Ice Barriers are mostly synchro and Trishula is the main monster of the deck, but adding something like that that's somewhat competitively viable would be a great way, not only for one, players to get into the game and have a really good competitive structure deck, like the Shadal structure deck, like the Salmon Great one, like the Rocket one, like a lot of these good ones that we've seen over the past year and a half, 2 years. But because if they added it, number two, they would make more money, since I'm pretty sure on sites like eBay and TCG Player, Konami doesn't really make money on singles. I don't think so. Please, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong. But that would be a great way for them to kind of make money, and I hope you see the little Napoleon there in the corner. But that would be a great way for them to make money, because I'm sure that people would buy the deck just for Totally Awesome, the Ronin Totem, and the Dupe Frog, on top of the Trishula and the Zero, in the deck. Number two, that's on the top of my head, like topic number two, is adding the Water Genex. Like, I think it's Hydro Genex, the Synchro monster. Like, they got Genex Controller and Genex Undyne. Sorry, I'm looking at the back of the structure deck for the names, so forgive me, please. But it's just with those two monsters in the main deck, it seems like they were setting up for having that in the extra deck, and they just didn't add it for whatever reason. That just doesn't make a lot of sense for them to have those two monsters in the main deck, then just not have that extra deck monster, Other than that, it seems pretty good. Like, for a, like Ice Barrier one with limited, resources, I think it's fine otherwise. A lot of the art on the cards, I just love. I just love it. Like that one spell card wins over the Ice Barrier that has beautiful artwork. And a lot of the monsters, especially like the higher ones, the higher level monsters for the Ice Barrier, like the generals and they have amazing artwork. And the Trishula Zero, again, great artwork. I think they really did a great job on the artwork. Structure deck overall, personally, I remember this deck from 5Ds, that one video game. I can't remember if it's the Championship 2010 or not, but I just remember in the video game there was this one Ice Barrier deck that I just had the most trouble with. And this is just a really nice throwback to 5Ds, because I've said this a lot, but I started out in 5Ds, so it's just nice to have it. But that's really my thoughts on it, that's really about it. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below if you liked this. I know this one was super long, super duper long. The first part was 40 minutes, then there was this little part at the end that's going on 5 now. So if you don't, I was thinking about doing it another way, where I just show a picture of the card and type out the effect and just leave it on screen for 5 or 10 seconds so you can pause it, read it, and go on to the next card. So let me know if you'd like that more, because that would leave a lot of less time. It would at least cut it in half, at least. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay frosty, my friends.